Welcome in to the greatest podcast you're ever going to listen to on Thursday, March the 29th, between the hours of noon and 1 Central, roughly. This is your favorite CHGO Bears Podcast, proudly presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook. Download the app, use the promo code CHGO when you sign up. Good afternoon, Bears fans. Joined by the exquisitely not following directions, Nicholas Moriano, who was in studio when we were told by upper management to not be in studio, and the always dynamic, smiling, creating new nicknames for me that perhaps will stick, wearing his Bears long sleeve t-shirt today, Gregory Allen Braggs Jr. Welcome.
Welcome. Yeah, you have an official burner account in honor of Cram. I don't know if you've seen this yet, Nick, but we have a burner account that has now come into existence called CHGO Cram. And I couldn't be more proud. This is as proud a moment that I've had in my life since when my daughter was born.
Wow. See, don't you think it's interesting, by the way, and he does deserve all this, but that, you know, it's just right to Braggs, right to his own credit. Proudest moment that I've ever had, you know. I mean, it has nothing to do with just people wanting to connect with good old Cram over here, but it's Braggs' creation, which is a beautiful thing. What's up, Crystal? Good to see you. I've missed saying hello to you.
I did not create the Cram. The chat, our loyal chat did. I just sprinkled some gasoline on it and then lit the match.
Well, see, now this is the second time today. You alerted me to the Cram, and then you told me that you didn't create the Cram.
I did not. I will not take credit for something I didn't create. I just helped pour some gasoline on it. That's all. Innocent gas fire.
Nick, did I hear you accuse Greg of creating the Cram in the last 90 seconds?
I think the Cram, so the Cram originated in the chat, but I think what Greg has been doing is just pouring gasoline on the fire.
But I'm asking, but Nick, did you accuse Braggs of creating the Cram in the last 2 minutes?
You just said I'm trying to make it about me. I'm just. I'm
talking to Nick right now.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll mute my mic.
Nick, did you accuse Braggs of creating Cram?
Honestly, Mark, I have no idea. I'm in studio today. Obviously, I don't listen or do what I'm supposed to be doing. So I have no idea if I just said that in the last 2 minutes or not.
You didn't. You absolutely did not.
I'm zoned out.
You know, you're in. You're absolutely here. You're following along perfectly. Neither did I. And yet, the non-Cram creator has now told on himself or let us know that he didn't create it multiple times, which I think, if we're being honest, you know, and thinking logically, that seems incriminating to me, that you want everybody to know. I didn't rob the bank. No, I didn't do it.
I just want to give credit where credit is due. You know, obviously I got the brick by brick down. I don't need to take credit for everything. I want to give credit to our loyal chat. They're so great. They came up with this, and I love them for that. Somebody said it first. I don't know who that is, and I feel bad for that because I want to give them a huge shout-out because it is now taking on a life of its own. You don't know who created it? I saw someone in the chat say it one day, and it made me laugh. I said it on the show. No. Who created it? We don't know yet. Someone is going to reveal themselves as the originator of this, but we'll see if how that goes. I'm not sure if I believe that you don't know who's doing it, but I truly don't. It was someone in our chat. I feel bad that I can't specifically give them a shout out because it is such a beautiful thing now. Okay. I want to give them that shout out. Okay. Yes.
If you're watching, if you're just listening to this, there is now a graphic Cram 24. You have to go watch YouTube for this one. Yeah,
Joey just put up the graphic. And all right, we can move along. Adam Rank's joining the show. Adam, of course, everybody knows Adam Rank, the straight dominator. No one loves the Bears as much as Adam Rank. Perhaps Greg Braggs does, and Nicholas does, and I do, and Hogue does. But I think we'll give, since he's coming on our podcast, we'll give Rank top rating, and he's certainly right there. And he's also incredibly informed, working for the NFL Network, and he does stand-up comedy. And we just appreciate him joining us in a couple of minutes here. Also, Pearl Gonzalez, who is an MMA fighter. She's fighting on Saturday. She's a huge Bears fan. She's going to be on after Adam around 12:45. So big guest day here. And I'm seeing some super chats rolling in here. Isaac Siegel, I think it's from cramming all your insightful tennis knowledge on this Bears podcast.
Love it.
It is 19 years ago today, the first time that Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer ever matched up. Nadal beat him in Miami 6-3, 6-3. There's a cramming of tennis. So just to take the lead on that. All right, I actually have beef that I want to start the show with. Listen, I like George McCaskey, okay? I like him a lot. I think I know that you're not a huge fan, Braggs, but George drives a Honda Accord. He parks in the media lot with the rest of me and Nick and the people that go out to Hallis Hall. He doesn't need to do that. He's a pretty much a regular guy. He walks around Soldier Field. He talks to the fans. Nick and I accosted him last year at a game. Like, George has a very regularness to him for somebody who's got millions of dollars in his bank account and could definitely distance himself. I appreciate all of that about George. But then George was asked, the Bears haven't been on Hard Knocks, and Braggs, you can take it from here. But look, George is fighting back on the Bears being selected to be on Hard Knocks, saying there's 31 other teams that are a better candidate than the Bears. George, let's move forward, man. Let's get into 2023.
Right.
You don't have anything to hide. We're not there's no secret information that's going to be revealed. And if there is something that you don't want out there, you will handle it. It's very good promotion for your franchise. Your fans will love it. They'd love to see behind the scenes stuff. And for the Bears to actively be trying to not be on HBO's Hard Knocks, it's just out of touch, man. You're depriving your fan base of something they would really like. So I just don't like it at all.
Yeah, I mean, the quote was that, he feels that there's plenty of teams that have a great story to tell. And then when he asked about his team, he said 31 other teams. And, the Bears are one of 4 teams that fit the criteria. There's 3 criteria you have to meet where you can be forced to be on Hard Knocks, which is you can't have made the playoffs in the last 2 years. Your head coach has to be in at least his second season as head coach. And then the third one is, I was just looking it up earlier, I'd never been on Hard Knocks before. And so they fit that. They're one of 4 teams. The Saints, who I don't think have much appeal this year. The Commanders, who I think are certainly interesting, especially if Magic Johnson buys the Washington Commanders. And then the New York Jets are the other team besides the Bears. And obviously with Aaron Rodgers, that would have a lot of appeal. But the New York Jets have been on Hard Knocks twice already, where the Bears have never been on it. And, the NFL could come down and say, we're going to make you. Now, I don't know. Does George have enough pull as a charter or, franchise of the NFL? The Bears have done so much for this league. Does he have enough pull to veto it, even though they're one of the teams that could be forced to do it? They might. And that's frustrating to me because they just upgraded the facilities at Hallis Hall. The Hallis Hall campus is awesome. Like, I miss Bourbonnais, but I'd be lying if I said the first time I walked onto Hallis Hall's campus, I wasn't like, wow, this is awesome. And it was a cool experience for me as a Bears fan to be there, closer to where the Bears, do their work. And then you talk about the upgrades inside the building. Hogan's talked about the technology advancements that they've done in there. You could show all that off to the world, to the players around the league that are watching this show just like we are. The other aspect of it, too, that I think George is maybe losing sight of when he answers this is tell the story of Virginia McCaskey. She's not long for this world anymore, and she deserves to have her story told again. There's plenty of fans and younger people out there that have no idea what Virginia McCaskey means to the NFL and what her dad means to the NFL. and tell that story. That could be a part of a Hard Knocks episode segment. Like, to me, there's so many advantages, obviously, with the team and Justin Fields and a new president and an upcoming new stadium. There's so many avenues you could go with this when Hard Knocks puts the production together. And it's disappointing to hear our owner not want to get involved in it, because I know every Bears fan, the majority of Bears fans, would love to see it. I know some are on his side that it's too much of a distraction. I just don't see it that way. The Lions were in it last year. They had a very solid season.
Be better, be better, George. Yeah, be better. No, I just want to. I'm cutting you off because we got our special guest here. Adam Rank is ready to join us. Of course, the Sick Podcast with our friend Carmi V, fantasy football expert for the NFL Network and everything else over there. Stand-up comedy, and always look good. Adam, thank you so much for joining CHGO Bears. Great to see you, my friend.
No, thanks for having me on. Appreciate being here. And I love coming in, listening to Braggs talking about this Hard Knock situation, because it is disappointing. Like, I love the McCaskey family, and I get it, because, like, if you think about George Halas, like, would he have wanted to be on Hard Knocks? Is this something that he would have wanted to do? Is this something that the family would have wanted to do? I really do. I feel like the family would say no. But unfortunately, you're going to get railroaded into this thing unless Rodgers gets traded in the next couple of weeks and they, set that aside. That's the only way that keeps the Bears off Hard Knocks, because these other owners will just be like, tough luck, like, you're doing it, and it will be the best possible situation. Trust me, George, you're going to love it.
I mean, right, Adam, give me an idea of what exactly George McCaskey, if you can somehow move into the McCaskey head, is afraid of other than ghosts. You have Matt Eberflus. The dude drinks whole milk and goes to bed at 9 o'clock after he's done studying tape. Justin Fields is the most perfect guy going. Everybody, who are you? You're not going to be drafting Jalen Carter. We can have that conversation coming up. Like, you are a grilled cheese, Cheerios, tomato soup football team right now, who hopefully will win a bunch of games this year.
Yeah, we all have a relative who you love, who you just think is the best, and you're like, okay, we're all going to Olive Garden, and they're like, nah, I can't do it. Like, why not? Like, what's the downside of unlimited breadsticks? What are you doing? And they're like, nah, I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna drink my old style, and I just don't want to deal with it. And I get, like, when you have football people who've been doing this for generations, they hate anything new. It's like trying to get, like, one of your older relatives, like, let me show you TikTok. Like, get out of here. I'm never. They finally still have a VCR, like, stuff like that, where you're just like, I understand what you're like. Not everything new is something for you to be afraid of. And I feel like, from a old school football traditionalist family, which the Bears certainly are, they're not up for this. And this doesn't surprise me in the least. And I think that over the last 5 years, ever since Ryan Pace was hired, there's been a slow evolution of the Chicago Bears of joining the rest of the league in modern football. I mean, now we have an assistant GM. Now we're looking to build our own stadium. Things that other teams have been doing for years, we're now starting to do just right now. And so for us to be behind, like, the Ford family's in the same boat. Like, do you think that the Ford family wanted to be on Hard Knocks? Probably not. But somebody convinced them that this was a good idea. Where are the grandkids? Where are the great-grandkids? Have them explain it to you. Like, once McCaskey's, like, all you got to do is get McCaskey's grandkids into the mix. They'll convince them, be like, okay, it's a good idea. Like George is a fun guy. Like, he actually is a fun guy too. Like, you would love this. So we need to change the approach. Get the grandkids. Well, I know that they play high school football somewhere in the area. Get out there and be like, you guys got to be on Hard Knocks. They're probably dying to do it. And it's like, you just got to get your grandfather and your great grandmother to get on board.
Well, you talk about the evolution of this franchise here in recent years, and it certainly feels that way. And I think one of the biggest, shoes to drop was a new president to this team. Yeah. And not only a new president, but someone that isn't an in-house guy. They brought somebody outside the organization, which isn't like McCaskey to do in a lot of ways, in my opinion. He comes in April 17th, officially leaving the Big Ten. He's had such an impact in just the short amount of years he's with the Big Ten. He got UCLA and USC to come over.
Wait, hold on. He got USC. Don't throw UCLA into that. Don't act like USC was like Fox didn't want to leave the LA media market open. I'm sorry, I live in Southern California.
And it'll be really interesting to see them integrate to the Big Ten. Maybe they can get Big Ten basketball back on track. We'll see. But when it and the new TV deal, so he's obviously very centered on understanding about the appeal to the media, social media, TV, and otherwise. Do you think Kevin Warren, the new president, will have an impact on swaying his perspective on this? Because that's my hope.
100%. Yeah. Like, it's funny. Like, I watched that same clip with McCaskey, and I just took it as okay, of course you're going to feel that way. But all these guys are so forward thinking, and they understand the business of the NFL. And again, I will point one of the reasons why Kevin Warren is going to be here is to help usher us into Arlington Heights. And he was a big proponent or a big impetus of how Minnesota got their stadium deal done in downtown Minneapolis. He is going to be doing the same type of thing. This is going to be a very hip, modern franchise. And it's in Chicago, which is one of the best cities in the world. It's one thing to be able to make Minnesota, Minneapolis is actually pretty cool. But you know what I'm saying? This is going to be, I think, over the next couple of decades, is going to end up being the focal point of the NFL. Chicago is going to know, and there'll be years where we may be down or whatever, but Chicago is going to be this well-run machine, having a new stadium, having a state-of-the-art, facilities, having a state-of-the-art destination of where people are going to come and hang out in Arlington Heights, and it's going to be cool. And for everybody, and let me tell you something right now. I live in Southern California. Understand, SoFi Stadium is not in Los Angeles. It's in the suburbs. It still works. It's still really cool. And that's exactly what we're going to have. So I think that all this stuff lends into it. The stadium, Hard Knocks, being relevant beyond the NFL. All this stuff is going to be happening with the Chicago Bears.
Adam, what will help the Bears be relevant is getting some of these draft picks right. And let's say the Bears stay at number 9 here. There's no trade down scenario. Polls can't find anybody to trade down. Do you have a preference of whether the Bears go offense or defense with that 9th overall pick? All the guys that you have on your draft board there, Adam, are on there available at 9. Do you have a preference?
None of this matters. What I think it's going to come down to Ryan Poles, and I kind of trust. I know you mentioned Jalen Carter. Again, if the Bears drafted him, and I'm not saying that they are, but I trust Ryan Poles to do his due diligence, and if he's making, I'm okay, I'll go along with it. Everything being said with the offensive, all the deficiencies on the offensive line and the defensive line, I personally would go with Jackson Smith and Jigba, because I really do believe that we need to double down at the wide receiver position. I know that it looks great that we've got Mooney, Claypool, and DJ Moore, but you need that 4th guy. And if anything happens, if Claypool doesn't develop, if Mooney doesn't develop, and you need to move on, not only do you need a solid number 2 with DJ Moore, we're going to need a wide receiver who's on a rookie deal so that when we extend guys like Justin Fields, we have that option.
Right. So, I'm not against it, because we talked about it the other night on our After Dark show. The Bears have 2 first-round picks next year. Yeah. So, but this is your one chance to take a position group where it's first off the board, first wide receiver off the board. Those 2 picks next year may not be an opportunity to take a first offensive lineman or a first wide receiver off the board. So if I'm with you. I'm all in on Ryan Poles. I think he's kind of got this mob boss mentality, swagger to him, and he's made so many right moves. He's put us in this position where the Bears are now picking first. I don't think any of us thought that was possible, and now here we are. They trade that to get DJ Moore. I couldn't be more all in on. It was easy last year to hedge and say, I'm not worried about the win-loss. I'm just worried about development. This year, now I'm starting to veer back towards my meatball mode, and I'm going to be hard-pressed to not be overexcited about my expectations on the win-loss perspective this year.
Bro Delicious with the super chat. Hal $9.99. Thank you, Bro Delicious. Hallis was a great salesman when the NFL started and was always coming up with some scheme to promote the league and the Bears. For his grandson to turn down Hard Knocks is against Papa Bear's legacy. That's a good spin right there, Bro Delicious. Yeah. I like that spin.
He kept the Green Bay Packers organization running. He sent them a check to keep them in business. The Bears have done so much. The McCaskies have done so much to keep this league what it is today. They should tell that story on Hard Knocks.
Yeah, that's true. You know what? I forgot. I'm still thinking of like McCaskey as like this Navyman who would be like, like he doesn't want to do. But you're absolutely right, Brutalicious. The whole notion of like he did everything to promote the NFL. That's another thing too, is that because the Packers have won Super Bowls and the Lombardi Trophy and all that stuff, I really wish that the Bears' history was a little bit more well known of what they've done to help get the NFL to this point. You know, baseball does a great job. Like everybody knows who Babe Ruth is and all these great Yankees of lore and all these old timey baseball players. And yet, if I sit here and tell somebody about, I mean, it's almost to the point where kids don't remember Jay Cutler, like, whatever. But like, I wish we could talk about it. Cause like I made the joke about when we were looking for another wide receiver before we got DJ Moore, is like, we got to talk to the McAfee family to get their number 5 down so we can give it to T. Higgins. And somebody's like, Pat Mac? I'm like, I'm not having this conversation anymore. But nobody knows.
It's true. I got to follow up on that, but let me just tell you quickly, team, about DraftKings, our fine sponsor. I got a ton of plays tonight, by the way, on the Bulls and the Lakers. Pat Bev, you are going to double down on your LeBron is too little situation. You're getting over 4.5 rebounds tonight, Pat Bev. I've got you, Pat Bev. You and the Bulls are going to hold LeBron over under the 24.5. I'm very fired up for Bulls and Lakers tonight, even though Rank is shaking his head and sitting out there in LA and might be even a Lakers fan, which would make me nauseous. DraftKings, though, is where you gotta go to get her done, make yourself some money, have some fun, make the game more fun. Download the app now, sign up with the code CHGO. New customers can bet $5, get $200 in bonus bets instantly, only at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, with the code CHGO. Minimum age and restrictions apply. See show notes for details.
No, Adam's getting Angels tickets. He's a huge Angels fan. And he needs to get out there and see Ohtani a few more times before we bring him to Chicago to play for the Cubs next year.
Oh, I've got some bad news for you. He's not going to Chicago. If he does leave, and I honestly don't think he will, especially if the team wins this year. If he does leave, it's either going to be San Diego or Seattle. He doesn't want to play in the huge markets. It was one of the reasons why he signed with the Angels in the first place. It's funny, like if you listen to New York sports talk, for the last week in New York City, the Mets made a lot of moves in the offseason, the Yankees or whatever. They only talk about Ohtani, and it's hilarious. And I'm like, when he doesn't, like you guys did this with Mike Trout, like you had been ready for Mike Trout to be a Yankee, and it never happened. And I'm happy about it. I think Ohtani's going to be the same way. He loves Newport Beach.
Well, and they're talking about Aaron Rodgers in New York, right? I mean, what are your thoughts on Aaron Rodgers leaving the division, or hasn't yet, but potentially leaving the division, and to go to New York to play in that media market?
I can't wait. You know what? He's been a little insulated, protected in Green Bay. Like nobody really challenges him on anything. And so if he has to go and play in New York, I could see a number of meltdowns happening. I could see a lot of things going poorly for him, which is exactly what I want to have happen. Not not in a personal situation, but as a football player, like I would love to see him experience more failure like he did last season. Like watching that Lions game, and I will say this, and I hate to give the Lions credit for anything. Outside of the Kansas City Chiefs, no team had a better ending of their season than the Detroit Lions. Like it was perfect for them. Like you won your last game. Your last game was against your arch rival who had made your life miserable for generations, and you humiliated them on Sunday Night Football. That is like I was so jealous, and I never thought I'd say this. I was so jealous of the Lions. Like, oh, what a perfect ending. And they get a top 10 pick because the Rams sucked. This is not good for us.
It was my dream that the Bears would be the one to do to Green Bay what the Lions got to do. So congratulations to Detroit. Speaking of the Lions, Adam, I want to get your reaction to Dan Campbell and his comments on Jalen Carter, if we can play this, Joey, because I thought it was interesting, and certainly in comparison to Matt Eberflus, who, God bless the Flus, but he won't tell you where he's going to dinner. And then here comes Dan Campbell. And here were his thoughts on Jalen Carter, who the Lions, are considering at 6, 18, and who knows if they draft this guy. Let's listen to the coach.
A, can you define that? And then B, there's a lot of questions about you, not necessarily specifically about him, but when you're dealing with some of those draft guys that have some of the pertinent questions, like what's the non-negotiable for you? What do you need to hear from them to be comfortable? Is it the honesty? Is it the football first part?
Yeah, no, I think honesty helps. I think you want to know. I think ultimately you want to know. It's one thing, like, for example, does a player give all that he has on the tape? Is there a player? He's not a lazy player. All right. Now, there are plenty of times you'll turn the tape on and the guy's not going snap the whistle, but it does not deal with laziness. They haven't been coached to do it. They haven't had a coach that's been on them, or they just don't know. They're just unaware, and you get away with some things that ordinarily you wouldn't. And that's really, they just don't know. And so I think that's what you're trying to figure out. And you go through the character when you start talking about, and the position coach, you start talking to the head coach, you start talking to the resources at the school. And then you begin to develop, hey man, this is what this guy's really like. Like you talk about Carter. I mean, we talked to a teammate of his the other day, and man, he told us some things we didn't know, that nobody probably would have known. It was like, oh, it's interesting. It's pretty good. So it's interesting.
Okay, so there's a lot there, and at the end is especially the interesting part. Interesting, and then he says pretty good. So it sounds to me like, and it's interesting. Another interesting part is, was he not coached to do that? You tell me that Kirby Smart at Georgia's not telling him to play hard all the time? I mean, that's you're kind of creating excuses for the dude. But I don't know. I just appreciate the transparency on one side, and I want that guy to be the coach of the Bears on another side. And I'm wondering, does that sound to you like Jalen Carter is going to end up in Detroit if it was up to Dan Campbell?
I think it's very honestly what the most telling part of that is now obviously he got some intelligence from one of his teammates at Georgia. If the Lions pass on him, that raises a red flag to me, because the Lions are in the perfect position to take Jalen Carter. Them and Seattle. Both teams are holding lottery tickets with first-round picks that they weren't expecting, that now have landed in the top 10 for the Seahawks, a top 5 pick. Those are two coaches and two organizations that would foster a player like Jalen Carter. Think about Pete Carroll and his history going all the way back to USC. Think about the way that Dan Campbell holds his business, the way he has built a culture in Detroit. I honestly believe that this is the funniest thing about the Bears is, like, if these two teams are passing on him, then why would you take them? Like, these are the two ideal situations, perfectly objectively. The two organizations that I would look at, Pete Carroll, Dan Campbell, they've handled players that have had some questions coming into the league. And if both of those coaches who have needs at that position with a generational talent, if both of them had decided that with their lottery pick, their free money, these are gift cards. These draft picks for them are gift cards that they weren't expecting. If they're not taking Jalen Carter, I'm not sure that I want to get into that business either. Like, that is, I kind of like it. And I trust Ryan Poles to do his thing. And if the Bears ended up picking him, I'd be like, okay, like I'll trust you. You know more than me. But at the same time, it would be a concern for me that both of those teams passed up on him.
For sure. Adam, real quick, just sticking with the NFC North, Detroit Lions, how are you kind of viewing this division right now? Obviously, if Aaron Rodgers out of the equation, I don't know where Minnesota is going to be completely at this point right now, but it seems like Detroit's the front runner, and we'll see what Justin Fields can do in year 3. But how are you kind of viewing the division and going into this 2023 season?
It is a really interesting thing because the Packers, I don't think, are going to be very good. The Minnesota Vikings, they're going to regress. They have to. You're not going to win 12 one-score games again. You're going to regress back to the mean. I think that means at least 6 fewer wins for you. And it comes down, and just a 50. That's 50-50. Like, you're not winning all those games again. You're not going to live that way. It's impossible. It's mathematically impossible. So I look at the Lions and I look at the Bears, and it's very interesting of, like, which side would you want to be on? Now, currently, the Lions are further than the Bears, but what the Bears have is their franchise quarterback. Would you rather be in the situation where you're the Chicago Bears and you have draft capital over the next 3 years, but you have your quarterback of the future? Or would you rather be the better team right now, but you have Jared Goff? and this is no disrespect to Jared Goff, who played very well at the end of last season. Personally, objectively, I'd rather be in the Bears spot. I think that when you have your quarterback, it is a much different way of living. We have not experienced this in our lifetime. We don't know what it's like to go in, like, just to be in an offseason where you're like, yeah, at least we don't need to worry about the quarterback. I know we had that a little bit with Jay Cutler, but this is a different feeling, and this is sort of brand new for us, and it's refreshing. So I'd rather be in the Bears spot, even if the Lions are better than us at this point in time.
Yeah, and as far as this year is concerned, when you're looking at it, like the Bears are kind of playing with house money because they don't have the expectations the Bears or the Lions are going to have this season. So there's a pressure factor because every time the Bears are hyped up like they were in 2019, they fall on their face seemingly most of my lifetime. So pressure is certainly an aspect of it where the Bears aren't going to have as much pressure to be like a 10-win team. They could surprise maybe that way. Who knows? But the one question I wanted to ask you, you're the fantasy football expert on NFL Network. You're not just an expert, you're one of the most entertaining guys on that entire network. You do a fantastic job. And I need you to help me out because I finished last place in my fantasy football league last year, and I had been 2 out of the last 3 years prior to that, the champ. And now I'm like, it's hard for me to focus because we're doing this all day. We're watching the Bears in studio. I can't pay attention to the league. It is excuses. So I need your help, Adam. And when I'm looking at the Bears and Justin Fields, who was QB1 ranked for like 6 weeks in a row, right? Who would have ever, as a Bears fan, to see my quarterback at the top of the fantasy football rankings for quarterbacks week to week was mind-blowing. And now you've got DJ Moore. You've got a wide receiver room that is respectable at the very least, if not solid. And then Khalil Herbert enters the fold as potential RB1 with
hold on. Dante Foreman. Dante Foreman. He had 5 100-yard games last year. How many did the Bears have as a team? How many did they have without their quarterback having 3 of them? I love Foreman. I thought, like, I was bummed out that David Montgomery was leaving, but when you're like, oh, we're getting Dante Foreman, you're like, that's a pretty good player. I'm not going to be upset about that. So I look at it fantasy-wise. I think the biggest thing, and I always kind of now buck conventional wisdom of getting an elite quarterback, because every hipster is like, hey, like, wait on a quarterback. I got Geno Smith in the 10th round. You're like, yeah, but for every one of those, you end up with some other quarterback who doesn't play as well. And for week to week, Geno wasn't as good as you think he is. So every team that I had last year that made the fantasy championships, my quarterbacks were either Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, or Josh Allen. I think that gives you a floor that's very safe, and every week you're going to be competitive and don't mess around with it. And of course, Justin Fields should hopefully be in that mix, although his running could go down and he's going to rely more on passing. And if you're in a league that rewards you with 4 points for a passing touchdown, Justin Fields could regress fantasy wise, which is fine with us if we're out there winning and he's not running the ball as much as he did last season.
So you're going to see him being taken as a hot target in the early rounds, but you're suggesting potentially, playing wind to the caution or caution to the wind when it comes to that. Yeah, that's interesting.
I'm gonna take Mahomes.
What about a guy like DJ Moore? Where would you rank? Like if you're scouting where you're going to take him in fantasy leagues, what round are you looking as best value?
I anticipate him getting a ridiculous amount of targets. And one of the big reasons why is that, playing that X slot or the X spot, not the slot, but the X spot. When you look at all of Justin Fields' highlights last year, there's a lot of broken coverages or not broken protection, and he worms out of it and then runs down the field. We might see less of that and more of him being like, oh, there's DJ Moore wide open. And I know Justin's not left-handed, but bear with me. I feel like we're going to do a lot of that, and there's going to be a big trust of like, I know DJ's going to be open. I don't think that he had that trust with a lot of the receivers last year. Like, he was like, Dante Pettis seems open, but nah. There was a couple times he tried it and it worked out. But for the most part, he trusted himself more than he trusted his receivers. But I think that DJ Moore comes in with a respect in the league, and he's going to be able to throw him a lot more opportunities, a lot more 50-50 balls. And so I see it switching that way, which means less rushing, which will be a problem for us fantasy wise. But for Bears fans, we'll be delighted. And who cares how we're moving the football? We actually started to see it at the end of last year. If you look at the Eagles game and you look at some of the highlights, like when you look at the way, because like David Montgomery was like his safety valve in that game. That's where I see DJ Moore making a huge impact.
I want to do a rewind back here just for a second. I meant to do this at the start. No worries, don't get nervous, Adam. But I like a little bit of anatomy of an Adam rank. Like my Bears history, I had Dad played football in high school and college. Marshall High School, Western Illinois, was a Leatherneck before World War II. Go Fred Carman. There's a headline out there in some Chicago newspaper. Carman runs 101 yards to beat Harrison. You don't have that in the Braggs family. We'll talk about that later, Braggs. So I got that going on. And then I got two older brothers who, like my entire upbringing, I'm going to be 50 in August. They're 20 years and 15 years older than me. All I heard every day was the greatness of Gale Sayers. Gale Sayers, Gale Sayers, Gale Sayers, Gale Sayers. He was like the Jordan in the household. And then my first Bears game was at Soldier Field was Bears Bucks game 1 Super Bowl year 1985. You've got like the fandom all over you. Like, how did it come to be?
Yeah, you know what? My dad was a World War II veteran. So he was born in Sterling, Illinois in the 1920s. It'd be weird to be the 2020s. So he grew up a Chicago Bears fan. And as a matter of fact, he used to tell me stories about going to Comiskey Park because you couldn't get into Wrigley Field to go see Bears games. So they had to go to Comiskey Park. And he's like, I was an obnoxious Bears fan in the Chicago Cardinals home stadium, rooting for them. So he was he's a big Bears fan. Walter Payton was actually his guy. He saw everybody. I mean, when you're born in the 20s, you see everybody. But Walter Payton was undisputedly his guy. And so I was born in Chicago, and we lived there for 5 years. And then we moved to Southern California. And so I grew up, which is always annoying to people because I root for the Lakers. Rooting for the Kings was not a happy occasion with my family a number of years ago. The Angels, my dad grew up as a Cubs fan, or both my parents grew up as Cubs fans and all that stuff. My dad switched every team except for the Bears, was the one that he would not change. He was not about to root for the Rams. So I was sort of like, I kind of like the Rams, and the Cowboys were always out on TV out here too. But my dad was, my first helmet was a Bears helmet. Bears, like I have Bears stuff for days. But I was always like, but what about the Rams? I get it now as a father because my son, not my daughter, my 7-year-old daughter is an ace. She'll root for whoever I root for. She's like, we're Angels, no doubt about it. Arsenal, fine. My son starts talking about the Dodgers, and I'm like, how do you know what Dodger Stadium looks like? Stop this. And so I was just kind of like, whatever. And so then when obviously there's no football here for 20 some odd years. So I eventually, like at the behest, like finally embraced the family team. So as a little kid, I was sort of ambivalent. Like I'm into like Super Tecmo Bowl and stuff like that. But then, eventually, and unfortunately, both my parents have passed away. So for my father, I have his starter jacket. Christmas of 1985, my mom gave him a starter jacket. The original old school one. I still have it. The closet's behind me. It's still hanging there. It's still brought out on special occasions. So for me, at some point, and, working with the NFL, it's like, it's not always easy to be a fan of one team. But like I really embraced the Bears, I've fulfilled the family wishes, like the prodigal son of Park Ridge. Although I was Schaumburg, but whatever. Park Ridge sounds better.
Close enough.
But it was really something that I wanted to live into the family tradition. Like it is something that gives my kids a sense of like this family started in Ireland, but this family started in Chicago. And so this is our connection back to Chicago. And this is going to be something you're rooting for, the teams that your grandfather and your grandmother rooted for. Your grandfather would save up all this money. He lived in a farm in Sterling, and would get to go to one game a year, and it was at Comiskey Park to go see the Bears and Cardinals. And so I wanted to keep that tradition alive and going. So that's why the Bears mean so much to me, and why I really love being a part of the Chicago Bears space. So that's my abridged story, and this is why it's annoying to a lot of you. Like, why do you root for Ohtani? Like, okay.
No, and you do a great job bringing the positivity to Bears Twitter, because I know it's sorely needed on the mean streets of Bears Twitter at times. So I appreciate your positivity and energy, and I always got to commend you, because I think most people that go to a national platform like NFL Network or ESPN, they tend to just root for everybody, right? And if your loyalties lie one way or the other, you kind of push that to the side for the betterment of the league and the brand or whatever. And you didn't. You've gone full blown. I'm Bears meatball. You'll pick them to win 12 games on shows. You go crazy. And I think as most Bears, I can speak for most Bears fans, we appreciate that you show that passion on a platform that big.
Well, the best part of it too is because I had to be like kind of a closeted Bears fan. And then years ago, we had the Dave Damashek football program on the NFL Network. And I'm like, hey, let's do this thing where it's called fan free agency, where I get to pick a team, because I would be like, well, we don't have a team in Southern California. Who should I root for? And so then it was all the guys for me to be like, oh, I'm a Bears fan. And like, oh, okay. And it gives us a backstory and everything. And so like, oh, well, I did, but because, again, it was just the right thing to do with my family. And now everybody can get off they're not completely on my back. Like I get this stuff sent to me. I will get gifts and be like, oh, I'm like, this is not a Bears hat. There's a bull right there. That's not a bear. That is legitimately not a bear, but it looks cool. The colors are cool. So I sort of low-key hate it. I don't want to put a Lakers hat back there because it would be too confusing. Because then I have to do the story all the time. How did you? I'm like, all right, let's sit down. It's story time with Rank. But
it's a great story to tell, Adam. And one last thing for you. You planning on coming back to Chicago anytime soon? I know we're supposed to have you in the studio for one of the time, so we'll have to get that set up.
Well, GMFB ruined that. I ended up doing GMFB that week. I actually said that on the show last night, the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank. I would mention, I wanted to go in studio, but that got blown up. But hopefully, I'll be back. I should be back at some point during the summer. I mean, just if for nothing else, I would love, and I'll kick it off here. I think it'd be really cool for everybody who creates Bears content, if we could get together for a day. And I know personally, I love Roscoe Village. I love the Beat Kitchen. I think if we just set up a Saturday and we set up our own Bears Fan Fest, we just overtook the Beat Kitchen or something, and we just did a marathon stream that could be on everybody's, either CHGO, Sick, we got the Tape Never Lies, everybody, just be a part of it and just have a cool little blowout and just have a lot of fun. And but I would love to do that at some point.
Yeah,
great idea.
Yep.
That'd be great.
And the Beat Kitchen's a great spot. My buddy who used to play in Bizarro used to dominate there on the stage. Damn it, some good live music at the Beat Kitchen back in the day. All right, Ed, before you go here, and by the way, we had a Zoom hangout last night, and everybody was talking about the Sick Podcast in there, and you and Carmen, and so you're talking
about Carmen, and then and the idiot that she's with.
No. I mean, she did get a bunch of love as she deserves, but you were right there. So you said JSN. Let's get a prediction on what you think the Bears will actually do. Braggs is on his Bragg's pulpit saying they're going to trade back. He's made that call, and he was right about going down to 9. He's been puffing out the chest, deservedly so on that one. So what do you think they do at 9?
Oh, my gosh. I love the idea of moving back. I think that's a big possibility. And when you look at how Ryan Poles is building this team, where it's a multi-year situation, he even mentioned that this week at the NFL owners meetings, that moving down for one of these teams like the Buccaneers to move up and getting an additional first-round pick to give us 3 first-round picks next year, I think that's a realistic possibility. But as much as we talk about JSN, which would be my choice, Paris Johnson Jr., pass rusher, we're going to end up with Christian Gonzalez. That's my prediction. We're going to end up, and everybody's going to go crazy. but it's going to be a shrewd move, and we're going to have this great secondary. And so my prediction will be Christian Gonzalez.
If they do that, I'll support the hell out of it, because that means he's taking best player available, and that's the philosophy that ultimately gets teams to the top. And the other way, you end up taking Sam Bowie and not drafting the greatest player of all time, which of course Adam knows, even though he lives in LA, that Jordan is up here, and then there's like a space between 2 and 3, and then we can talk about who's number 4. But we don't need to do that right now. I just, Bulls Lakers, so it's on my mind for some reason, and I think that somebody's coming to town, even though he was. Never mind. Adam, dude, thank you so much, man. Braggs, thanks for setting this up. You guys, we really appreciate it.
It's a lot of fun.
You're the greatest, Ring. Honestly, the energy you bring and the support you show to all the different outlets, big or small, on Bears Twitter, it doesn't go unnoticed, and we all appreciate it a lot. So I ain't blowing smoke. I really appreciate it.
Well, you're too kind. Thank you so much. I love the job that you guys have been doing. It's a lot of fun to be a part of this Bears fandom, and let's keep up the momentum. And here's the thing, too. We've walked through all the bad times, and I know we're going to have a lot of hangers on. Don't be upset at those people. That's okay. It's just more meaningful for us, and it's going to be a lot of fun over the next couple of years, so enjoy it. And I'll see you guys real soon. I know we'll do this in person at some point. So thanks again for having me.
All right, Adam.
Our pleasure, 1,000%. There he goes, Adam Rank. Good job, Braggs. Good to have that gentleman on the program. He's freaking awesome. And we got a big guest coming up here, MMA Pearl Gonzalez, in a second. But Nick, first things first, I got to run out. So you're going to tell us a couple of things if you can do that. Can you handle that, my brother?
Yeah, I can handle that, Mark. You run out, but
I'm not. Just relax. I'll be right back.
The CHGO Bears offseason, guys, the coverage is brought to you by ComEd Energy Efficiency Program. You can learn more about ComEd.com/poweringbiz. And the ComEd Energy Efficiency Program is committed to helping families and businesses in the communities we serve manage energy usage and lower energy bills now and into the future. ComEd offers a wide array of incentives on lighting and other efficiency upgrades to commercial, industrial, and public sector customers of all sizes across our territory. And customers can inquire about how to upgrade outdated lighting to energy and money-saving efficient LED lights. Learn more about network lighting to operate your lights through your mobile device. I've done that before. It's such a convenience, and you should definitely learn about it here too. And you can also track your facility's energy usage and more. Incentives have recently increased for indoor, outdoor lighting and network lighting controls, making these projects even more cost-effective than before. And here's what you got to do. Visit ComEd.com/poweringbiz now to start saving money and energy. To start a project, contact us at 1-855-433-2700 for more information. You can email businessee@comed.com or publicsectoree@comed.com. And now, Mark, do you have the next one? I don't even know what the next ad read is.
I absolutely, positively have it. And Braggs, I want to know what you're smiling at before.
Well, because everyone was, there were some people that the easy prediction is that you went to the bathroom, but some of us heard in the chat, and I heard it as well, you were flipping your laundry. We heard the buttons beeping, and so that observation was funny. We also noticed you're wearing the Bulls shorts, so there's a lot going on over at the Cram residence. We're watching you over here.
So let me tell you something. First of all, you should give love for my Bulls pants, Bulls shorts, because again, Bulls Lakers tonight. Nothing, gets me going more than that. And I have no idea what you're talking about bathrooms and or my laundry. That's just ridiculous. Hey, you know what you should do is not watch me, and you should be watching Fubo TV. 140 live channels of sports shows, movies, and news. You can stream it live on your TV from any device. Watch the most Chicago sports for the lowest price. Fubo is freaking awesome. I'm telling you. You will not get a better. Fubo TV gives you phenomenal value. Start watching immediately. Check it out. 7-day free trial. So, there's no contract, no cable, no hassle. You sign up, you start watching, you do your 7-day free trial. You see how awesome Fubo TV is, and then, you make your call. 1,000 hours of cloud DVR included at no extra charge. You can watch local teams while traveling. Listen, you also have the college hockey. You've got the NCAA tournament obviously going on. You can watch any game, let's go Chicago Bulls tonight on Marquee, or not on Marquee, but on NBC Sports Chicago. It's in there with Fubo TV. So watch the Bulls and the Lakers on NBC Sports Chicago tonight. Use the link in the description to sign up. 15% off your first month of Fubo Pro. 15% off your first month of Fubo Pro. Fubo TV. I'm a longtime viewer, so get on in there. All right, let us bring in one of the superstars of the MMA, UFC fighting world, who's getting ready for a huge bout on Saturday night. Pearl Gonzalez is also a big-time Chicago Bears fan, and she joined us now on CHGO Bears. Pearl, thank you so much for making time for us. We appreciate it.
What's up, gentlemen? Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Pearl, before we get to the Bears, you don't look like someone who's ready for a fight on Saturday night. You look like you're more going to go out on Saturday night. How did you get the mentality to be able to do this thing? And by the way, tell us about who you're taking on Saturday.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm fighting for Game Bred Boxing 4, which is Jorge Masvidal's new boxing promotions. And it's a huge card. We've got Roy Jones Jr., Anthony Pettis is the main event. Pretty amazing main event. We've got Jacare Souza versus Vitor Belfort, who are some MMA legends. And then we have Jose Aldo versus Jeremy Stevens, which it has fireworks like written all over it. I mean, both of them have fought before. Jeremy comes to knock people out. Jose Aldo is one of the greatest strikers of all time. So it's a banger, that one. And right before all that fun action goes, I come on and I'm fighting against Gina Mazzani. Gina is a former UFC fighter as well. She's actually fought for 2 divisions for the UFC at 135 and 125. So it's a great matchup for me. I'm very, very excited to go out there and try to knock her ass out. I hope I can swear. Sorry.
You absolutely can. And you mentioned Masvidal. Braggs, you should get into this because he fought Nate Diaz for the baddest motherfucker belt, and he won that thing. He knocked him out in like 3 seconds. So I mean, these are some you could have been in there, Braggs. Like I'm a lover, not a fighter, Pearl, but Braggs over there, he's more of the fighting type.
I can't say I'm not stepping in the ring with any of these dudes, and I'm not stepping in the ring with you either, Pearl. I know my place here. All right, so all respect to you. So Mark told me you're a huge Bears fan. Like, you grew up around here, I take it. So maybe tell your story a little bit about your passion for this team.
Oh my goodness. So obviously born and raised in Chicago, I absolutely love and support everything sports Chicago. I've always been a tomboy. I've always been into sports. And so, I grew up watching football. My family are diehard Bears fans. So we'd watch, that was something that we did. My uncle actually has a condo right by the Soldier Field. So we got to watch the game, see all the fun shindigs that were going on. I mean, it was like a real 5-minute walk to go to the field and watch and see the pre-gaming and stuff and tailgating. So I have really fond memories of Sundays being fun here in Chicago. I miss it. I'm in California now. I live in San Diego. That's where I train full time. And the football teams, are just in other cities are not like ours.
No, the vibe is definitely different in Chicago. Well, we do tailgates, before every home game. So maybe if the stars align, the schedules line up, maybe we'll have you come by our tailgate if you're ever in town for one.
And we were supposed to have Pearl in studio today too, but since there's a little construction issue, although Nick is sitting there right now, which is
you could have sat with Nick because Nick didn't know.
I had my boxing gloves too. I wanted to get some advice and just some things, but go ahead, Mark.
Oh, no, I would have loved to.
Yeah, well, and I just want to follow up on the uncle in the South Loop because that's where I live, and right across the street from me is this thing called Soldier Field, and I don't know how you feel about this, Pearl, but I'm sitting there like, Bears in Chicago, baby. Let's fight this to the death and not go out to Arlington Heights. I don't know how you're feeling about it, your uncle, all that.
I don't understand. Who wants to go to Arlington Heights? It's like the people that say they're from Chicago, but they're really from Arlington Heights. That kind of gives me that vibe. And Chicago is such a gorgeous city. It's such a beautiful place. To me, you have to have the team in Chicago. It brings in tourists. It brings in people into these small businesses and gets that Chicago spirit out to the rest of the world. So I agree. I think it should stay in Soldier Field or stay in Chicago. At least build a new stadium in Chicago if you need a new stadium.
Bullseye insight, by the way. I love everything that's coming out of your mouth right now, Pearl. Those are beautiful words. I hope people are listening. Hey, it says Showtime Pettis is a beast. That's a loaded car with some veteran names. Maybe you can show Showtime some love.
Yes, he's huge. I mean, he's a Milwaukee. He's from Milwaukee, so he's very close to home. He's got several businesses out there. He's very involved. Has a gym. Does a lot of things with the youth in Milwaukee. And I actually had the opportunity a couple weeks ago to go to his gym. He's at Capatillo Gym in Las Vegas, and I went out there for a sparring session in Vegas about 2 weeks ago. So I got to be there and see him while he was in and out. He was on his way to go spar Caleb Plant. That's who he was using to get ready for his fight with Roy. And, man, he's in incredible shape right now. That morning I came in, he had just ran like 12 or 15 miles and then was on his way to spar. I mean, he's taking this very seriously. He wants to show out. He has an opportunity. Roy is one of the boxing GOATs. And so I think that this is a huge statement that he can put on for his boxing debut.
Pearl, I mean, 12 to 15 miles, that sounds insane. But I just started getting into kickboxing. What's some advice for someone who's just starting to get into it that you would give to a beginner like myself? Like, I'm just learning some of the basic combos and things like that. Any advice you can give?
Yeah, there's several. One thing is stick to your basics. I train basics every single day. You can never go wrong. Just like with any sport, your balance, your structure, those are key to developing power. And that's the key, right? Is to learn how to strike with power, learn how to strike with accuracy. And so I would say always stick to your basics, never pull away from those. Have as much fun as you can and shadow box, look in the mirror and watch yourself. That is my biggest tool to my technique and to my form, is watching myself and making sure that structure, that balance, I'm turning my hand over, I'm bringing it back to my face, I'm twerking my hips, and all those little movements, those little fundamentals that are vital to really learning how to land good strikes.
For sure. And real quickly, Pearl, how long does it take to prepare for a fight? Like for the one you're going to have this weekend, when did you start and how does that process even work for you?
I kind of stay in the gym all year round. I try not to leave fight camp. I try not to stay away from the gym. Obviously, life happens, situations happen where I have to pull away from training. But I try not to stay too far away. And so I really don't I try to stay ready rather than get ready. But typically you have a fight camp for about 8 to 6, anywhere from 6 to 10 weeks, depending on how big the fight is. I think for boxing, it's a little different. It's not as intricate as an MMA fight. You're not grappling, you're not wrestling, you're not putting these pieces together. And so I think boxing, a typical camp is about 6 weeks long.
So go ahead, Brex.
When you talk about technique, I'm curious if any athletes from the city or where you're at from outside of your sport come to train with you guys just to try to pick up different technique that might help them in their sports.
Yeah, there's a lot of football players that have been getting into mixed martial arts. One that I know personally, he's a great friend. I mean, we know through social media, is Mercedes Lewis. He's with the Packers, one of you guys' friends. But,
nobody's perfect.
He's actually been training mixed martial arts for about 10 years. And he's a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. He's done all kinds of striking. I mean, we've seen several fighters come over, even into the UFC, that have made their way over there. Eric Anders was a football player. Greg Hardy, he was a pro football player as well. There is a dude that I actually just commentated on. He made his debut for Jorge Masvidal's Icon, which is our mixed martial arts show. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but he plays for the XFL, which is the Rocks League, I think. And so he plays for them. And man, he was an incredible athlete. And he's like, I got to switch right now. I'm focusing on my football season. I don't train MMA when I'm doing this. I'm all in on my season. But as soon as this is over, this is what I come back to. And so I think more and more, especially today, the sport has evolved so much. 10, 20 years ago, the sport had martial artists, right? You had your kung fu guy, your karate guy, your wrestler, your jiu-jitsu guy, and you had each of those in their specialty competing against each other in mixed martial arts. Today, these are real athletes. These are athletes that have been training their entire life. And so with that, you have a lot of these athletes making the crossover. And when you have these skills, these natural talents, or these talents that have been built up, the strength, like I said, the conditioning, the posture, the understanding and awareness of your center of gravity, and you understand how to move your body, just like a football player, you can really transfer into something, transition into something like MMA pretty easily. I actually think that the football tackle is much more similar to MMA takedowns than wrestling. Now, wrestling, yes, you need all the skills in wrestling for MMA to take people down, to work against the fence, etc. But when you actually take someone down in MMA, you're moving, they're striking, much like a football tackle. You're never really stationary right in front of each other like a traditional wrestler. And so I've always thought of that, as well as the footwork. I mean, your footwork in football translates so well into boxing and kickboxing and striking.
Braggs, you want to play your video of your offensive line nonsense and see what
this draft guy that's coming out for Ohio State, an offensive lineman. He did this little skill drill at Pro Day where he's backing up and staying in his stance, and he's making these loud noises and then runs through it after he's done. So I reenacted it, and it looked ridiculous, as you might assume, but it was funny. We had some fun with it. So yeah, I'm working on it. I'm going to get in shape, and then maybe, because me and Carm have developed somewhat of a rivalry here, maybe you can help get me and Carm in the ring one day. We'll get the headgear on and everything, and you can be the official or the ref, and we'll go to work.
No, we won't.
Yeah, it'll be so much fun. It really is. If you ever punch someone, if you ever punch the shit out of someone, it's the best feeling in the world. And sometimes getting hit actually feels pretty good too. It sounds kind of crazy, but like, you really do let off so much energy and steam in sparring and in punching the bag and stuff. So I think it's a great idea.
Well, if me and Carm do it, it'd be a lot like when Michael Scott and Dwight Schrute squared off in The Office.
I mean, it'd be some. It would be some. That would turn into some life or death stuff, which is a little terrifying. But maybe we'll have to do that. How did you get into it back in the day, Pearl? I know you're my new best friend today, so I know a little bit of your background. That your dad kind of got you going that way. I think you were aggressive as a kid.
Oh my goodness, I was always fighting in the streets. I was always fighting, and so he needed something from me. My dad actually raised me as a single father, and he was just trying to figure it out. Poor guy. He was really didn't know what to do with a daughter, but he was trying to figure it out. I moved with him at 9 years old, and that was when he kind of took over and raised me from then on. But he needed something from me, and I was always fighting in the streets. He worked at Firestone. He was a hard worker, working 60 to 80 hours a week, and I had a lot of free time on my hands. So he needed something for me, not only to discipline me, to teach me, discipline and stuff, but he needed a place for me to kind of go after school. And I was a tomboy. I remember in my earliest days, like, he would take me to the YMCA. That was kind of what we did together. And I would play basketball with him. I'd lift weights with him. I was always just doing active sports. I used to play this football game called Pickle, and I somehow got the nickname as a kid, Pickle, because I loved this game. You'd throw the ball back and forth, and you had to run, and it was the best game ever. But my nickname actually was Pickle. So I was always into sports. And he found a gym for me, and I just remember sitting there looking at the coach, Master Bob Shermer, and he's like, I'm going to whip her ass into shape. I'll have her doing sit-ups. And I'm like, who is this guy? Who does this guy think he is? A couple weeks later, I was doing hundreds and hundreds of push-ups, and I learned really fast that he was right.
That's awesome.
You're going to like the answer to this question, Braggs. I got a little inside information. But back then when you were doing all that, who was your favorite Bears player?
Oh my goodness! Well, that was actually not when that was my favorite player. A little bit later on, though. This is the time when my uncle had his condo. We were watching the game. That was kind of our Sunday thing to do here. But Devin Hester, man, Devin Hester he's the GOAT. He's the GOAT.
Let's go.
And I just remember how excited we were for him. And I had his jersey, I remember the city was so excited for him. We did really well while he was playing with us. We almost made it. But he was my favorite. He's my favorite.
Yeah, I mean, for our generation, I was 2 months old when the Bears won the Super Bowl. So for a lot of us, that moment, even though they lost when Devin has to return the opening kickoff, and I think all Bears fans can appreciate, that was like, if you just want to take a single moment and not the game itself, that was one of the greatest moments in NFL history. When they tell the story of the National Football League, it's gonna the highlight montage will have Devin Hester returning that kick in it. So an epic moment there. Yeah, so it's really interesting because with your background and how you came up in fighting, I certainly was a scrapper growing up. I was in a lot of fights. I won some and I lost some. And even I work construction, and you'll see guys duke it out on the construction side. I mean, you just do. It's the nature of the business, and we go back to work the next day, and that's just how it is. So I'm curious from your perspective. Everybody talks about when they win a fight, but losing a fight, whether growing up or in the ring, how important was that for you to like mold who you are today?
Oh my God, it's such a huge part of my character development, right? Is one, accepting failure, but overcoming failure, picking yourself back up. And in my sport, you have some of the best and greatest moments in your life. You're in this crowd and you have this big victorious moment, and et cetera, et cetera. But then you have one of the most heartbreaking. You can have some of the most heartbreaking moments where like you just got your ass beat and like the whole world is just coming down on you and they're making fun of you and there's memes, and it's so hard because it doesn't show what it took to get in there, right? Yes, I fought and I had a shitty performance for this 15 minutes or so, but you didn't see what it took for me to get to this point and the hours of work that were put in prior to. And so for me, I think at first it was detrimental when I would lose. It was heartbreaking. I'd never wanted to do it again. I was so embarrassed. And then it got to the point where it was, I cannot allow for this bad moment, this bad performance, because that's what it is, to go past all of the progress. There was still so much progress made in the fight camp, so much progress made as an athlete. And so you have to, Kobe would talk about that. You have to have amnesia. And the same thing with the fight game. You have to have amnesia. Anybody, especially when it comes to mixed martial arts, anybody on any given night can win. We just saw that. We just saw this with the champions. Look how many champions were turned over this year. Valentina Shevchenko just lost her belt. She threw a spinning back kick, and no one knew that Alexa Grasso was going to jump on her back and choke her out like she did. She's one of the greatest female combat athletes of all time. She will go down right now as the very best. And it's something so small, a spinning back kick, that just took her reign. And so that you can't take away from all of the progress and the things in the history that she's made. One bad performance does not define your character, does not define your progress, does not define who you are. And I think for me, that was such a huge part of my character development, because we want everything now, right? We want to be a world champion today. We want this now. And you are not ready sometimes to accept that you failed, that you were not good enough tonight. And so it teaches discipline, it teaches perseverance, it teaches overcoming, but it also teaches patience, right? Patience in becoming, space and becoming. And I think that for me, I have learned so much more in my athletic career and as in my character from losses than I would ever from any win.
Yeah, I'm sure it's hard with social media. I didn't have to go to social media when Big Red whooped my ass in 5th grade. So.
Hey, Saturday night, Fiserv Forum. I'm not sure what order you're going to be out there, but you'll be there. If you're not going up, you can watch it on UFC Fight Pass pay-per-view. It's $49.99. Roy Jones, Anthony Pettis, everybody we're mentioning, but of course Pearl Gonzalez, Gina Mazzani. Am I pronouncing that right, Pearl?
Yeah, Gina Mazzani. And actually, I have a funny story about losing, so it's really, really quick, guys. I know you guys gotta go, but so I had this big professional jiu-jitsu fight right before I moved into boxing and transitioned over to bare knuckle boxing is what I had went into. But I had this big, huge match in professional jiu-jitsu, and I lost, and I was devastated, right? And I call my best friend, who is the promoter for Game Bread. He's the matchmaker. Dean Toole is his name. And I call him, and I'm just like, I just want to crawl in a hole, and I'm crying my eyes out. It's New Year's Eve, mind you, and we're home. And he was like, do something fun. He's like, I don't know. You got to turn it around. All of the media right now is on her. Take her height. And he was like, he sends me a picture of this dude, head to toe covered in fruit roll-ups. And I was like, got it. So I made a bikini out of fruit roll-ups and did this badass at-home photo shoot, and it got like 27,000 likes. It was all over media sites. It was fucking awesome. So I took that loss and I turned it into something positive and funny and utilized that momentum and just a little bit more insight. Be on the lookout for my press conference, which is tomorrow, because fruit roll-ups might be.
Making it
okay.
All right.
Real quickly,
awesome.
Pearl, before we have you go, I just want to know, what's it like being in the octagon? Like, what is that like? Like, for people who will never be there or have experienced that, what is that like when everyone's fixated on you, the lights are on you, you're about to go fight? Can you compare it to anything? But what is that like?
It is the scariest yet most sacred place in the world in my life that I've ever been. And even in the ring, it's different than the octagon. In the ring in boxing, you feel the energy. You can feel the momentum of the shouts and the people raving. You can feel it, literally feel it. But then you have the hot lights, the bright lights that are on you. You have usually a camera somewhere in your face. You have the energy from your team, the energy from your opponent and their team, the energy from the crowd. It's just like this huge, crazy, sacred moment, but it feels like a car accident. And you know that moment right before you get into a car accident, you either freeze or you move and you move the car or something, you act. That is what you're going through over and over and over again. Wow. You have these moments where you're like, what do I do? What do I do? And so you just have to constantly stay on your game, constantly stick to what you're supposed to do. And that's my best way. You can hear the crowd. You can hear her corner. You hear your corner. You hear the referee. You hear certain things. You might even see things. Some athletes see better than they hear sometimes. You can smell. You can smell the blood. You can smell the sweat. You can smell. So like all your senses are intact. And then you feel on top of that. So it's pretty incredible.
Wow.
That's nuts.
That was an incredible, I think we all got at least some level of feeling of the insanity of what you do.
Badass.
Which, by the way, you're, I don't know how long you're planning on doing this, Pearl, but when you're done, your ability to talk about it is extreme. So maybe someday at good old CHGO, we'll start the UFC channel. I'd like to formally, not way over my pay grade to do this, but I'd like to offer you a job as our official UFC talker who can also speak on Bears, and I'm sure there's other sports you can do too. So it was super awesome to have you on today. Great stuff. And go take Gina down. Is it
I'm knocking her ass out.
Do you hate her, or is it just business? Is it both?
It has absolutely nothing to do with her. I think that she's an incredible athlete. I have so much respect for her. But when she steps inside the ring, it becomes a personal thing, and it's just her and I in that ring on Saturday night. And I'm going to step toe to toe with her. I'm going to get right in her face. I don't plan on taking one step backwards. I'm going to get right in her face, and we're going to find out who hits harder, and we're going to find out who's the last woman standing.
Let's go.
Yeah, I'm hyped.
Pearl, thanks. Appreciate it. Well, let's do this again, okay?
Yes. Have a great one. Thank you.
All right. Our absolutely 1,000% our pleasure. Big show today, guys.
What a show.
Ready to fight. Let's do it.
I mean, how awesome was Pearl? And
awesome.
Me and Carm, Pearl's the ref. Get everyone there. Pay. People already said in the chat they'll pay to come. We can raise money for charity.
We'll make it an event, a CHGO event.
Yesterday my honesty was around Cram. Today my honesty is like the chance of me getting in the ring with that dude over there.
Let's go, Cram. Let's go, Cram.
Who was having fights in 5th grade with Spider-Man or whoever you did, Big Red.
Big Red. Big Red beat me up by the tennis courts at Windy Hill.
What'd you do? What'd you do, Greg?
He was a bully. I was bullied at times as a kid by the older kids because
you didn't run away.
I had a big mouth, so I would talk crap to the older kids, so they'd come after me. And then I also did my fair share of bullying. I'm not proud of it, but yeah, I mean we were all throwing blows when we were kids back in the day. That's just how you did it. I mean, so yeah, but Big Red gave me the brunt end of a few blows by Windy Hill tennis courts. I'm a man to admit it, Windy
Hill tennis courts makes me, that's Jordan's house was on Windy Hill. The Bulls are going to beat the Lakers tonight. And congrats to you for taking blows, because whenever I said stuff and eventually got myself in a little bit of trouble with people that were bigger than me, I used those legs, baby. I'm going to ski daddle. we
See, and that was my buddy Kyle. He was the one that would.
Yeah.
He was like the Chihuahua. He would bark and then run.
Yes.
And then I had to fight his.
I will own my Chihuahua-ness. All right, that was a fun show. Do we? You
remember, Mark? Because you're a Northwestern guy. Do you remember Ruby, the guy that came in for Northwestern football that was like 30 years old and was in the military?
Vaguely remember that.
And he came after the military to play for Northwestern. Him and his brother, Reed, God rest his soul, but when we were younger, they were two guys that used to chase me around Lakes of the Four Seasons for my big mouth. So,
If you could put some of the pictures of you as a young Braggs out on Twitter today, that'd be lovely. I'd love that.
Yes, let's do it.
I would appreciate seeing that. All right. Hey, thanks to Pearl. Thanks to Adam Rank. And thanks to everybody who watched today, who commented. Ton of fun today. Let's see. Today is Wednesday. I think I said this at the start of the show. It's Thursday. So we got opening day tomorrow, but CHGO Bears will be here at noon. Not 1,000% certain who's hosting, but we'll be here at noon tomorrow and at noon on Friday. I'll be on at least one, if not two, of the shows. And Braggs is going to make a special.
And then also don't forget to our guys. I mean, we got 2 meetups tomorrow for CHGO. Pre-game watch party for the White Sox versus Houston at 4 p.m. at the Whistle Sports Bar and Grill on 4911 West 95th Street. You can go hang out with the CHGO White Sox crew. And then our CHGO Cubs team is going to be live at the Country Club on Clark Street at 11 a.m. before the Cubs take on Milwaukee tomorrow. So go check those guys out as well. We got big things popping here at CHGO, and I'm excited for it all, especially some of the stuff coming down the pike for our Bears.
Opening day, baby. Let's go. Hopefully we'll have fingers crossed, we have a fun baseball season here, both sides of town. All right. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks for watching. Tell somebody about CHGO Bears if you haven't already. Hit that like button. Yes, hit that like button too. And we will see you tomorrow.